Hi, all. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to our weekly EWC webinar. I'm Dr. Susan Amat. I'm the VP for Education for Gen. And with you is our team running the back end for EWC. So you'll be joining us on these weekly webinars, as well as the cohort programming that's going to be running all summer as well. So today we have a really special topic. While many of us all over the world have been focusing on our normal sales channels, one of the key things that a lot of us need to start focusing on it with a newfound enthusiasm is that virtual networking and building up your sales pipeline through virtual means. You will be shocked by all of the resources available to really start understanding different ways to reach customers through virtual means, and quite frankly, create incredible relationships, even without having that normal face-to-face interaction that a lot of us have become really comfortable with. So whether you're joining us on Facebook Live or YouTube or through our Zoom chat, we're excited to have you here. We'll be fielding questions, but without any further ado, I'm excited to introduce our speaker. So Sergio Manquita has been a very good friend of the team and on the team now for many years. He has done incredible communications strategy for huge multinational corporations, as well as working with the little guy, working with entrepreneurs throughout our hemisphere on sales strategy, growth. And I think one of the best things about Sergio is he communicates really clearly, always makes people feel comfortable and excited about whatever the topic is. So we're thrilled to have Sergio with us today. We're going to turn it over to him for him to do his presentations on sales pipeline building. And then we'll have Q&A both on the topic, and then we'll go over to EWC specific Q&A. So keep your questions coming either through the Q&A chat or the thread chat. And again, Sergio, we're thrilled to have you here today. Welcome. Unmute.
Look at that. We get to do it again. Take two. So thank you, Susan. And thanks for the team here in Miami as well as around the world. It's great to be spending part of your day with you and for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of my experiences out in the field in the last 15 years that I've had the pleasure of working with a variety of different types of companies all across the world, all across the U.S. What we're going to be talking about today is something that's one of my favorite topics, is really about being proactive in filling your sales pipeline and figuring it out, where really the combination and the flux of sales, marketing, and networking really come together. So throughout the session today, we'll be spending some time on tips, strategies, and mindsets to figure out how you, as the co-founders, can really put forth the best effort, the best strategic way to really make a significant difference with your endeavors and with your companies. With that, next slide. So as you already know, growing a business just isn't easy, right? You need a viable idea, then you need to discover a profitable niche and define a target demographic and have something of value to sell, right? So whether you guys are in product or service, focusing on B2C or B2B, getting that word out, getting that attention has been increasingly burdensome, right? And without the right sales and marketing strategies to fuel that growth, Turning a profit and staying afloat is definitely challenging, if not mind-racking, okay? So the question always becomes, how do you get your message to the right audience and to do it effectively? And more importantly, how do you boost that visibility to increase sales, okay? Most entrepreneurs are so busy working in their businesses that they fail to work on their businesses. And as a result of dealing with all the day-to-day operations, the headaches, the distractions, oftentimes the entrepreneur neglects the right sales and marketing strategies that is really going to help them fuel their business growth. Next slide. So with that comes about demystifying all those myths and that's out there about sales, right? So a lot of people say, and we've all heard it, great salespeople are all extroverts. If you're not one, you're not going to succeed. Sales should really only be done by the experts. Or the other one, it's not for me. I'm much better behind the scenes. And in fact, change is difficult, and so is the unknown. And what most of us tend to do is we make excuses, okay? But inside each one of us, there's a great sales machine, okay? And why is sales so important? Because as entrepreneurs, and you may already know this, sales is the great equalizer, okay? Certainly there's people out there that are going to doubt you. They're not going to believe in your product or your vision. It's too far-fetched. However, when you have sales and when you've delivered on those sales, it's like you've earned the respect. You have validation. And it really changes the dynamic completely. Next. So let's spend a little bit of time about the mindset. You may recognize this gentleman here. He wrote a book. He's one of the original sharks, Robert Herjavec. In his book, You Don't Have to Be a Shark. The premise is very, very simple, right? Great salespeople are made. They're not born. And no one achieves success in life without knowing how to sell. So think about it this way. Whether we know it or not, we're selling every day. Whether it's convincing your kids to finish their vegetables, convincing your boyfriend or girlfriend to go to a concert or to go to a restaurant that they didn't want to, family members or friends to do different things. We're selling all the time. And one of the things to keep in mind and be very mindful is that sales is all about confidence. It's about the way you project yourself and how you present yourself. So as we go through these, just keep the following 5 tips in mind. Next. So the first thing is you're selling yourself. So forget about the product or service that you actually have, right? If whoever you're selling to doesn't like you, they're not going to listen to you. And if they're not going to listen to you, then they're not going to trust you. So present yourself well, be the salesperson you'd buy something from time and time again. Number 2, you want to listen more than you talk. Bad salespeople can't get over how amazing their product is. They talk and talk and talk about it. They're raving about it. Now, good salespeople listen to what their clients are saying. They pay attention to those needs right from the beginning, and they present accordingly. Number 3, you want to know who to sell to. And this is where preparation and research really comes into the focus, right? So for example, if you're selling a SaaS software that costs $50,000 a month, you can't target and you're not going to try to sell it to somebody whose budget is $5,000 a month, right? A common mistake that salespeople make is that they try to sell to anyone and everyone, and that's wrong, okay? You want to make sure that whatever you're selling really fulfills your potential client's needs and is realistic for them. And this is where a lot of the prospecting up ahead and done beforehand plays a very, very big role. The more realistic you are to them in reaching them with a solution that is within their budget, within their technological understanding or what have you, that's the more likely that you're going to get that sale. Number 4, you want to understand what motivates the other side, right? And by the other side, I mean the buyer. So why should people care about what you're selling? How is your product or service that you're providing of value to them? You really want to pay attention to what's driving your client to that initial meeting in the first place and address it right from the get-go. And lastly, this is the simplest, but oftentimes the hardest. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate your pitch just because you want to sound more knowledgeable. Remember, the mark of true knowledge in anything is how well you can explain to the average person. So keep your pitch simple, to the point, and always be mindful and be thinking about the person you're selling to. Make the approach about their needs and how they're going to feel after that pitch or that meeting. Next. So let's spend some time now with some 5 common mindsets that we've seen in effective teams. And this is across industries, across geographies, or what have you. Okay. Number 1, they clearly understand their why. Okay. So to be an extraordinary salesperson, you need to discover your why. You guys may be familiar with Simon Sinek in his TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. He talks a lot about how most leaders understand what their organizations do and how they do it, with the distinction that really great leaders are the ones that clearly understand the why behind their product or their service. And the sales process is no different, right? Great sellers are able to understand why they sell a product and how it's generally going to help their consumer and the customer, which results in a much more natural and organic sales process and experience. Number 2, great salespeople in the mindset, they're helping, they're not selling. So the most effective sellers lead with that mindset right from the get-go, okay? So they ask themselves, how is their product going to really help their customers by truly internalizing the benefits and value? This helps the sellers to view their world through a lens of understanding and empathy instead of one of a transactional lens. I was lucky enough very early on to lead the first Spanish language National Book of the Month Club campaign many, many years ago. And for this one, we did a very successful pilot. But once we did the pilot, we had overarching results. So we needed to find greater capacity across the back end, across the call center, or what have you. So we started the initial pilot at $80,000. And because through doing a worldwide search for a call center and optimizing all sorts of things, eventually I was able to grow that account to almost $1 million. So always be there to help. Number 3, they have clear intent. Customers can feel when they're being sold and when they're viewed as a little bit more than a conduit to a commission, okay? And you've probably seen this before, whether somebody was trying to sell you a vacation or a timeshare or even a car, right? Once a customer catches on that seller is only in it for the sale and they really don't have your customer's best interest in mind, their trust goes out the door. Forget about it, right? Remember, the only true difference between manipulating someone and persuading someone is intent. So the best sellers are crystal clear on their intent to help and to serve the customer. Number 4, they focus on what they control. A seller can only really control 2 aspects of the job, their attitude and their effort. So it's inevitable that rejection and lost sales, they're going to happen. It's part of the process. It's natural. So what's important is how that seller responds when things get tough, when things get challenging. The best salespeople don't let the fear of failure or rejection harm their effort levels. Instead, they use it as fuel. They use it as motivation. So they fail fast, they fail often, and rejection. And so they're always looking for the sales opportunity. Very early on in my sales career, I had a great coach. I had a great mentor. And she always used to tell me, the more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes. Meaning, don't be afraid of that rejection. Know that this is all about perseverance and consistency, and eventually you're going to get to that yes. Number 5, they listen more than they talk. You can't help someone without really understanding their intrinsic needs. So in many cases, customers aren't always willing or prepared to explain their needs on their own. Sometimes they have a difficulty expressing them, right? So smart salespeople take a listener's mindset right from the beginning, okay? And how do they do it? They listen, they ask great questions, and then they sit back to let the customer explain how the salesperson can best serve them. Okay, next slide. As part of that, we always have to be thinking, where can I prospect? How am I going to find all of these different entities in which to sell? And naturally, it's networking. And networking is one of my favorite things to do. I love it. Okay. So the trick to this is really to find ways to grow it tactfully, purposefully, and efficiently. Okay. Many of you have probably heard here in the United States about this thing called the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah. Well, think of it this way. We are all probably much more connected, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 degrees. And it's about really being genuine and enthusiastic about it to tap into those resources in a way to help you grow your business. So, first and foremost, the traditional way is really to do in-person events, whether they're trade shows, conferences, or speed networking, okay? And remember, when you're walking into that room, you need to walk in with a goal and with a purpose, okay? And you want to make sure that you're clearly representing who you are in what you do, okay? I go to events alone. That's right, alone. Why do I do that? So it forces me to meet others, okay? I'm there. I'm prepared with my elevator pitch. I want to make an impression. I want to be memorable. I want to leave an impression. And a lot of the ways that I do that, and you'll find your own style, your own way. Mine is through wit, through credibility, and by being funny, okay? But it's always important to always tell them what you're looking for, right? Keep it short. Keep it to the point. You want to make sure that you're not monopolizing their time, because everybody is there to build connections, right? When I go to events, I always give myself quotas, whether it's 3 or 5 interesting contacts or whatever it might be, depending on the length. I want to push myself to meet connected individuals. These are connected individuals in any industry, regardless if they're a hot prospect for me. Okay, why? Because I know that if someone's connected and has contacts in different areas, the likelihood of them being able to open their Rolodex and help me get somewhere is very good, okay? And for a lot of these events, whether they're cocktail events or webinars or speed networking or what have you, though the event may be 2 or 3 hours, I always give myself a time limit, right? So I can be efficient with it. So for most cocktail parties, for most networking events, I give myself 45 minutes. I put my alarm clock, I give myself 45 minutes, and it's the type of thing. I do the best that I can with the time that I have, and those 45 minutes is more of a time check, meaning, okay, am I making enough progress? Should I stay longer? Should I continue meeting more people? And if it's good, I stay. If not, I leave. But I know that I've put forth my best effort possible. Also, it may sound too simple, but always go to a networking event with business cards. Okay, why? Because you want to do 2 things. You want to give and you want to get them, right? And through the business cards, it's a great way to be able to write notes on the back of them to let you know what you're going to follow up on, because you will be following up within 24 hours via email, because that's the only real way to keep that going and to build to build credibility with it. Okay. Speed networking. Maybe you guys have heard of this. Speed networking is a lot like speed dating, in which you get 3 to 4 minutes with someone else in front of you, and it's just a quick way to get you to meet someone and to meet someone quickly. Okay, I like speed networking a lot because it's a great way to prospect many in a very efficient way. It also allows me a way to keep pitching my elevator pitch and to see if people from different backgrounds really understand what I'm saying. Okay, if they're not, then clearly I need to make some changes. Moving on to the online aspect, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook groups or Eventbrite, there's lots and lots of different ways to do things there. So LinkedIn is really the most effective, the most popular. Certainly it is in North America and in many Western countries. That may be the case where you are as well. On LinkedIn, what you want to do is you want to be an active contributor. You want to follow interesting people, okay, thought leaders, those that are in your industry or what have you, right? And you want to share insights and you want to give advice. The reason for that is because you want to start building an online persona that's one of credibility, of value, that you're a good resource, okay? at some point you should probably be spending actively between 30 to 45 minutes a day on LinkedIn, whether it's learning, prospecting, getting different ideas or inspiration. And the best thing about LinkedIn is obviously you click on somebody's name and you get an idea of their background immediately, where they both worked, where they went to school. A great way is a lot of people list the nonprofits that they're involved with. How are they volunteering their time? That's always an interesting way to really get to someone and get to them really quickly. Another aspect that you can do on LinkedIn, when you're reaching out to people that you don't know, you want to go ahead and personalize the invite. And in that personalization, briefly tell them why you want to connect with them, whether it was you met them through a webinar, you found their insights enlightening, or what have you, or you referred to them by somebody else. The more you personalize, the greater likelihood that they're going to accept. And obviously, once they accept, you'll be able to carry on a much more robust dialogue. Okay? Keep in mind that obviously, when it comes to social media, there's lots and lots of different options. LinkedIn is the one that's mostly closely associated with business, but obviously, we should not dismiss neither Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Just keep in mind, depending on how you've built your audience and your list, figure out which one that tends to work best for you. For most people, doing business stuff most naturally goes straight to LinkedIn, whereas Facebook can be a combination of business and personal. Twitter really varies, and Instagram, again, it varies as well. So keep that in mind. The other thing online that you can do, whether it's through Facebook or through LinkedIn, is university alumni groups, right? Whether it's for your undergrad or your graduate school, you already have an inherent camaraderie, a connection there. It's a great way to meet other interesting people in different geographies and tap into their networks, okay? Eventbrite. Eventbrite is something that obviously now with the situation, more people are using. I've been using it for many years. Eventbrite is great because it gives you access to different planned events, whether they're online or offline. You can learn about the panelists that are going to be there. You can Google them. Eventually, you can friend them on LinkedIn, right? And the other thing that's been happening is many times on Eventbrite or other platforms that are offering webinars, for some reason, if you can't attend all of it or you just attend partially of it, they give you a recording of it. So it's always good to be able to reference and use it in the future, okay? Number 3, let's talk a little bit about podcasting. Maybe you already have a podcast. Maybe you're a friend to podcasting and have your list already. Podcasting is a great way to build your professional contacts, right? Because through this medium, it's inherent that the networking is a two-way street. It's a way to build a relationship because you're providing your guests with a platform for them to share their information. And at the same time, you're learning a ton about what they're doing, right? So if you can't start your own, listen to others, reach out to them through podcasting. There's a great viral component to it. Tag them in social media. Nothing like them getting a little bit more exposure and adding more people to it. I found that they're extremely, extremely responsive, and people that may seem unreachable or untenable, once you mention that you listen to either their podcast or them being a guest on a podcast, all sorts of barriers fall down, and it leads towards the possibility of having great conversations and great discussions. Number 4, when it comes to associations, there's lots of them, and the trick is to sift through them and figure out which ones are going to work the best for you, right? Whether it's a chamber of commerce, whether it's an ethnic group, whether it's something of that nature, right? Or a local marketing meetup, right? Oftentimes, these organizations, these associations, they already have a listing of their members and the companies and where they work. Oftentimes, there's also a lot of contact information also. So it's a great place to prospect. And just keep in mind that if you've been trying to find somebody at a real estate firm, let's just say, and you find someone there, but they're not in the executive team, you could still approach the person that you're talking to and ask them, I'm looking for this person. Can you help? This is why I need it. So it's always a great place to get started. The last one, point number 5 there, is throughout all of your online and offline adventures, of course, and through your networking, you want to make sure that in all the activities that you're doing, and the way that you present yourself is always in a very authentic, consistent, and proactive way. Next. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what's in your toolbox, okay? So in this slide here, you see the aspects on your left. These are the materials that you need to get the meeting, right? To get the meeting with the prospect. And then the ones on the right are all those materials that you actually need for the meeting, okay? So we'll spend a little time on both. On getting the meeting, okay, obviously, we already talked about networking. The next one is really, the aspects of how you're going to do your blogs, your industry articles, and what have you. And for that, the answer is your marketing team. So embrace your marketing team. They're your partners. They're there to help. You can make them look good, and in turn, they can make you look good, okay? So they are a repository of ideas, and they can help you execute, whether in terms of writing blogs or articles, different content marketing pieces, even your marketing collateral, your one sheet, right? All of these are done in such a way that it allows for your product or your service to get discovered, okay? And at the same time, it also kind of gives a little bit of a script or a little bit of an excuse for you or your salespeople to go ahead and reach back out to prospects. For example, here's a survey that we did about trends that are going on in the industry. How are things with you? What are you seeing? So that's a little bit more of a natural way to get that going, right? The key thing about content marketing and blogs is that it paves the way for you to be seen as a resource, as someone that adds value, okay? When it comes to promotional videos, or teaser videos, as they're sometimes called, you want to think of it as snackable content, right? People's attention spans are diminishing, unfortunately. Lots of distractions, lots of barrage out there. So you want that video to be anywhere from 15 to 45 seconds. You want to get to the point. You want to explain it in such a way that you're kind of giving a preview for a longer conversation, because obviously you're leaving the door wide open for an invitation to learn more about their business, their needs, and to have a little bit more of a detailed conversation. When it comes to training obviously goes without saying. You need to be completely and totally comfortable with the product or the service that you're selling, inside and out, up and down, beta tested completely, right? Now, the other part that's also very important is to be able to do, part of that training is really to do live training, role playing with other people on your team, to be able to see how you come across, what are the phrases that you use, what's your tempo. And the other one is really, it's much more about, how do you answer their questions? What's the best way to answer them? Are they really understanding what you're saying? And here it's really to not only do the active listening, but also to prepare yourself for packaging different types of answers depending on the objections that they present. Okay? And lastly, you need to track your progress. And there's lots and lots of CRM providers and software out there. You may be familiar with Salesforce or HubSpot, Excel, Soho. Whatever it is that you are, you have to be consistent with it. And it has to be done in a way that people will actually use it, okay? And just remember, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. So that part is quite important. So now that we've talked about what you need to prepare before you get to the meeting, okay, let's spend a little bit of time now talking about what you actually need for the meeting. Okay, so now that you've got the meeting, it's happening next Thursday at 3 o'clock, great. There's a number of things that you need to do prior to the meeting, okay? And a lot of it is really is due diligence, right? You want to do your research. You want to prepare yourself not only about the company, what kind of new products do they have, Has there been any press on them? Have they been growing? What's really true and unique about them, right? So that's due diligence on the company. At the same time, you want to do diligence on the buyer, on the actual person that you're having the meeting with. Okay, what's their background? Where do they go to school? What do they like to do for fun? Now on Google, all sorts of really interesting things come to terms. Okay, the easiest one, at a bare minimum, you should definitely be looking up the person that you're meeting with on LinkedIn. Okay, I found through my entire career that those salespeople that look me up before they sit down and meet with me, they come in much better prepared. They have a better nuance for my background and what have you, and they tailor it accordingly. For the meeting, obviously you will have a presentation. Perhaps it's PowerPoint, Canvas, or what have you, but you definitely want to include case studies in there. Okay, the reason why you want to include case studies is you want to take the theoretical from the theoretical world right into the practical. Okay, in an ideal world, you have a perfect case study for a company that's in exactly the same industry and it's the right size, whether it's a small or medium-sized company or a Fortune 500 company, right? But if you don't, it's still important to showcase the different types of companies that have used your product and what they got out of it and what the lessons learned from them were. Okay? In some cases, because you're going to be in the room and there's going to be more time, if you have a much longer video that can really explain much more about your company in greater length, that's the place to do it. Most of these videos are usually 60 seconds, probably no more than 90 seconds. Okay? If it applies for you, obviously you'll bring product samples and again, business cards. Business cards to be a physical reminder and for them to categorize for them how to follow up with you, how to get back in touch with you. Obviously, you'll be doing a lot of that, but it's par for the course. Okay. Next, so you're prepared on your prospect. You've thought about. You've had the meeting with them. How are you going to close that sale, right? So here are 10 specific techniques to be able to do that. Okay. So number one, you want to be able to tell a great story, right? So your sales pitch needs a story in which your client is the protagonist. So this is going to be a clear, a convincing story that describes how you and your client partner up to tackle a major problem, their biggest pain, right? And help them wrap their head around it. This way, not only can they visualize themselves in it, but it's easier for them to become and say yes. Number two, you want to put yourself in the buyer's shoes, right? The problem with many sales presentations is that they focus way too much. On the product and the company, right? In essence, the buyer really doesn't care about that. Okay, you want to put yourself in their shoes and ask them, if I had my client's problem, what do I want to hear from the salesperson? What do they need to say, or what's going to convince me to actually pull the trigger? Okay, the best way to do this is to do role playing with someone in the office, with a colleague, and them playing the client role, you're playing the seller role, to be able to anticipate and to get much more comfortable with the types of questions that may come up. Number three, you want to magnify their pain, okay? People don't buy anything without a clear and burning need for it, okay? So your product or your service, it can't be a nice to have. It has to be a must have, okay? So in doing so, you really need to magnify the pain that you know your client is facing, okay? Maybe it's thousands of dollars being lost in revenues, or not being as efficient, or not, having slow equipment. Okay, so you have to show them that you understand that pain and how you're going to solve it. Okay, and keep in mind for this part, most clients, most companies, the way that they correlate this fastest is when they're losing money. Or their employee base isn't being as efficiency. So whenever you can put those connections and make those connections for them, the better. Okay. Number four, you want to handle your top objections right from the beginning. Okay. The best way to do this is actually to pre-answer their questions. Okay. So as part of your role playing, you could do kind of like a quasi FAQ and to be ready for that, right? The more you pre-answer them during the presentation and you integrate them directly on there, the less obstruction, the less objections you're going to get, and the closer that they're going to start to see, maybe this is something that I do need. Okay. Number 5, contact a lead immediately. Okay. We all know that when something's hot, it's hot, and if we don't fan the flames of a fire, it's going to burn out. Leads are just the same. So the leads grow colder by the minute. So you get one, make contact. No need to psych yourself up. No need to wait for the right moment. Just pick up the phone and get right to it. Okay. A lot of studies have shown that as fast as the lead comes in and the faster that you get back to them, they're more likely to convert. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the the next one. Number 6, you wanna keep contacting them, right? So too many salespeople, they make a couple of attempts to contact the lead. Maybe they're not being very strategic about it, and then they just go ahead and scratch it off the list. Okay? You need to be persistent without being aggressive, without being annoying. Okay? So just so you have in mind, a study by Velocify found that most salespeople need to go around 6 or 7 different contacts. Okay? 6 or 7 attempts before they actually make contact. Okay? So devil is definitely in the details. Okay? And the other thing is obviously, once you do reach them, always follow it up with an email. Okay? Number 7, avoid calling midday. Go for midweek and really find out when's the best time to call them. So timing with sales is super, super important. Okay? So lots of studies out there. A study by Lead Response Management found that really calling early in the morning or late in the afternoon makes the most sense. Okay? And that sounds about right? Most of the days, middle of the day is being spent in meetings and conference calls or what have you. Okay? I found in my experience in the lots of different places that Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays tend to be the best days to reach out to them. And within those days, again, early in the morning, and by early in the morning, I mean before 10 or after 4 o'clock, late afternoon. That's the best time to go ahead and try to get a hold of them. Okay? Lately also, in some instances, depending on the category, unfortunately, a lot of people are so behind on their emails that they spend part of Sunday afternoon trying to catch up. So I have worked for some startups that when I sent emails on Friday, believe it or not, between 4 and 6, they actually got a pretty fast response. So the thing is, keep all of this in mind. Test different things depending on your particular niche or industry. That may vary. Number 8, you want to show your unique value. Okay, yeah, you have a solution, but so does your competition. So you need to be able to explain to them succinctly what are you bringing to the table? What's different? What's that extra benefit? Okay, and remember, if you can't do that, then you're not going to get them to take action on it. Okay. Number 9, show why things need to change. Okay, and I know that some of you are in different stages of your startups. Sometimes you think that you don't have competitors. In fact, everybody does have competition. And one of the greatest competitors is the status quo, or doing nothing about it, or keeping the way things are doing. So you want to find a way that you connect how you're showing the benefits of your product to get them to ditch the old way of doing things and to finally come to fruition. Okay? It's inevitable. It's definitely inevitable that your client has frustrations about the way that things are being done now, right? So spell out how you can alleviate that frustration right from the beginning and it's closer to that. Okay? As part of that also, don't forget to ask for the sale. If you don't ask for the sale, you have to give them a chance to say yes. But if you don't ask for it, they're not gonna prompt you for it. Okay, so be proactive about that. And number 10, just remember, the customer is always right, and they are absolutely right about everything. Okay, so there's no reason to get in an argument with them. There's no reason to disagree with them. Okay, whatever, leave your ego at the door. Okay, you're there to take whatever what they're saying, and even if you don't agree, to find a way to pivot towards why your product would be the right choice. Okay, and remember, when you're in there, you don't need to be right. You just need to make a sale. You need to make that sale. So when you keep that perspective, you respect what the client said, and then you can move onwards. Next slide. If any of you have been around sales, the traditional way of thinking about it is, that it's all about the ABCs, that you should always be closing. Okay? I actually disagree with that. I think it's all about the ABLs, right? And it's really about always be learning from each interaction, from each phone call, from each email, in terms of the phrasing, in terms of the approach, in terms of the body language. There's lots and lots of different things. There's always things for us to learn. And once we recognize that, to be able to tweak it and apply it to the next thing, okay? It's part of this, I think the term in Japanese is kaizen, okay? It's continuous improvement. Think about it that way, okay? And the other thing is, many times, salespeople, they're seen in a disturbing or in a negative light, right? And don't think about you as being a salesperson. Think of you as being a farmer. You want to be a farmer, not a hunter. You want to plant seeds. You want to water them. You want to nurture them. You want to see the fruit of the labors, right? Whether it's 2 months from now or 6 months from now. But certainly, we all know that people are much more responsive to farmers rather than to hunters. Let's talk a little bit about strategic partners and strategic partnerships. Obviously, many of you have thought about that, perhaps in some of your advisory boards. They've suggested many of them. Strategic partners can make a lot of sense, and it is a great way to fast-track growth, right? It just depends on how you go about it, how they complement you, what you're bringing to the table, and what they have, right? But just remember, just like in personal relationships, you want to date your partners before you get married, okay? And in doing so, you want to make sure that all your in-house operations, all the back end is totally and completely in order before you pursue any of those strategic partnerships, right? Why are strategic partnerships so, or can be seen as very beneficial? Because they really, by partnering with somebody else, they probably give you access to new markets or channels. You can share intellectual property or infrastructure. And in many ways, by diversifying your partnership with them and the market that they're going after, it may actually reduce your risk. At the same time, obviously, managing business partnerships, they're not perfect all the time, and they may get complicated, especially as you strike different partnerships, different relationships, either in different sectors or in different geographies, right? So all of this could include anything from partners' disagreements on the objectives for the relationships, poor communication among the partners, having poor governance processes, and in many ways, the partner's inability to identify and quickly make changes, in order for this to succeed. So a lot of it is really always know from the beginning and during your check-ins that your objectives are aligned and that you have clear and consistent communication to make the best of that partnership. So by now you're probably wondering, what's kind of my style? My style is a much more, I call it a smarketer. Why? Is because I approach sales from a marketing perspective, okay? And what you see here is just a handful of the different types of companies that I've been involved in, okay? And whether they were in product or service, I learned something new from every single experience. And I took that to the next selling or marketing experience, okay? So on the left-hand side, you may recognize some of those logos. All of these companies, Univision, the Moringa people, they all had a good brand name and a good product. And in all of their messaging, they had an aspirational approach. Okay, so because there was an aspirational approach and they were very, very clear on their why, it made the selling much easier. In the middle there, those companies were a little bit harder, okay? Because what happens, whether it was a language learning program, a car, an airline, or a barbecue restaurant, okay, you weren't sure, what they were selling. Is it essential? Is it an indulgence? Is it expensive? Is it worth the adding value? Because that wasn't always clear. That caused for some tension, okay? And so that made part of the selling process a little difficult. The most difficult one are the ones on the right-hand side. Both of those, coincidentally, are B2B companies, and they're both technology companies, okay? And why were these the most difficult? It basically came down to two aspects, okay? One, their pricing was really not in line with the reality or with the marketplace, okay? And I'm not saying that you have to be the low cost one, okay? No, I'm just saying that you have to be competitive with what it was. Both of these were way out of line, okay? The other one is that the product in and of itself, while it did solve a problem, it was a problem that wasn't present now. It was something that could have been solved, or the companies were looking at it to solve, 4 to 6 months beforehand. So they were behind the curve on the industry. So you want to be mindful and keep track of all of that. So next slide, please. So you're probably now wondering, as a founder, as a CEO, what role do you play in sales? A very important one, right? Because in all the efforts that you do in creating value and building a culture around that to eventually get you the public relations, the notoriety that you need, you're the one that sets the tone, right? You are the one that's going to lead by example, that people need to be able to know that you're in the trenches with them and that you're going to develop a culture that's true and genuine to your personality and to the rest of your co-founders, and that you're going to be able to do it in a way that is consistent and that has integrity, right? And at the end of the day, you gotta think of sales from two lenses. One, you're the chief cheerleader, right? So at the beginning, you're out there, you're selling everything with them, hand in hand, right? Hand-to-hand combat. But also, sales is really a contact sport, okay? So it takes contact to make the sales, and you have to build your contacts at the same time to be able to continue with it. So lastly, the way to build your pipeline, the way to be proactive about it, is to have your process, to have a system in place to be able to identify it and to track it, right? And to train you and your team in a way that's true. To allow for the style of each salesperson to really brim through, right? And to be unique and consistent to what they're doing, but also to demystify all those bad thoughts, all those limiting thoughts about what is the right mindset, what a salesperson can do. Because at the end of the day, you want to be authentic, you want to be bold, you want to learn from your actions and be able to repeat them time and time again. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So I think a great place to start, Sergio, that was a fantastic presentation and covered a lot of things all of us are working on right now. A great place to start, a few people asked specifically about engaging with investors. And one of the things that keeps coming up in the conversations we're having with many of our partners throughout the world, a lot of people think that, fundraising is over for a while, but in reality, we're seeing more and more investments actually being made faster right now, because if you are in virtual learning, logistics, transport, it's amazing how great the needs are and how many investors are now willing to make an investment, knowing that those companies have a window to take over a marketplace. But do you have any thoughts around specifically doing the one-on-one research, diligencing for investors? And I'm happy to fill in the blanks and keep the conversation around investors going. So if you could start it off with researching, understanding the thesis and making sure it's a fit and getting those connections going now and not waiting, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot that you can do ahead of time. A lot of it is really by identifying, the sectors that they invest in regularly and the ones that they seem to be most interested, to be able to look at the type of companies that they've invested in the past, to get a sense for what their style for investing is, right? That's right from the beginning, to get an idea, and to get an idea of the deal size, right? So, for example, if they're usually comfortable in the place of raising, seed rounds between 1 million and 5 million rounds, okay, great. But if you're looking for $50 million, that may be a totally different type of investor. It's not to discount it, but to understand where they fit in, right? That's first and foremost. The second one is really to be able to get a sense from your online research or from different YouTube or panels that they've been a part of. You want to try to get a sense for, their style, their personality, what really gets them excited, right? The other side of that one is, I once listened to a great presentation by Jason Kalakanis, that basically he went ahead and listed out all the things that are his pet peeves. Okay, so not knowing what to stay away from to tailor your pitch is also a very, very important thing, and can be rather impactful.
So I think when you think through investment, it's definitely not just about who has money, right? So understanding an investor's portfolio thesis. If it's an angel investor, they will probably list a bunch of boards they're a part of on their LinkedIn. They'll probably list the kind of investments they've made before. So you'll get to see and have an idea of what areas they actually have an interest in from a board perspective, as well as a portfolio perspective. But I think one of the funny quotes that we use a lot, it keeps it simple, right? If you're looking for advice, ask for money. If you're looking for money, ask for advice. So you don't start with, here's our pitch, we need money. You start with, hi, I know you're really busy. Here's what we're working on. If you could find half an hour to just listen to our pitch and give us guidance on people we should be talking to. We're putting together a board. If you have any ideas of entrepreneurs that you work with who may be a fit for our board, to give us a little bit more strategic advice. That's what a lot of what Sergio was saying all comes down to. It's the relationship building. It's trust. No one's investing in your company because of the idea. They're investing because they trust in you. They know that you're going to execute and that you've de-risked as much as possible. So that relationship building, it's a process. And so reaching out through LinkedIn, listening to their webinars, doing your research, that's all part of it. But then it's following up and creating a space where you can send them a note for the introduction they made you and how great the conversation was. And here's what happened. And I'll check back in a month and let you know how this goes. So it's that give and take that really shows that you're going to actually carry things through and execute, which is really where every investor is focused. Who's going to execute and actually give me that return? And if they say they're going to do something, they do it. So it's that preliminary research and then creating room for relationship building. Oh, please go ahead, Sergio.
One more quick thing. A couple of years ago, I ended up going to a fundraiser, and I'd been researching about this investor, and his thing was all technology and real estate, okay? But somehow I found out that he had just become a vegan, okay? And that he had really turned his life around, and he really started talking about it. As it turned out, he ended up being at this event. So I was representing a company that really wasn't within his portfolio, but it was within the health and vegan lifestyle. So I acknowledged it. I told him, listen, I know this is not really in your investment portfolio, but if you would look at it, I would welcome any feedback. Not only did he look at it, but he connected me with 2 or 3 other people, okay, that were specifically looking for something like that.
I think one of the great things that has come out of the last couple of months of challenges for so many of us, people just seem to be a little bit more human and nicer. And it never hurts to just ask. Again, it's such a simple thing where when you put it out there, could you spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Could you introduce me to this? Obviously, introductions, you have to earn an introduction by showing your reel first. But I'm finding it's been so easy for people to just take the extra minute and be kind. And quite frankly, if they're not going to be kind to you, better you find out before you waste a lot of time and energy trying, right? But always make the first move, always do the follow-up. Super important. Another question that came in, it's about selecting strategic partners. So Sergio, when you're thinking through, I mean, you've worked with so many different brands in so many different verticals in so many different regions. What's the process for thinking through and researching, creating space, build a strong long-term strategic partnership? Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, so a lot of different levers, but one of the first ones is, if you can find early on, do the values of my company and do the values of the strategic partner, are they aligned? You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but do we have a basis for understanding? Okay. Do we really go, that's one of them. The other one is to really figure out and be very transparent what you're bringing to the table and how they're bringing and what they bring to the table and how you can complement each other. Okay. But you want to complement each other, and you want to be able to pragmatically think through with them what the different phases of that look like. You know, at the beginning, we're going to do this. In the middle of it, we're going to do that. And eventually we can get to that. All right. And the thing is, obviously, to look within the immediate industries that make the most sense within your target markets. But a lot of times it's also about really keeping an open mind as to companies or partnerships that may be on the periphery, to really be able to bring a very different perspective. And so you want to keep that all in mind.
I think your focus on the initial values is so important. And a lot of people forget, you know, sometimes these partnerships, including investments, they're harder to break up than a marriage. The paperwork and the commitment you're making in signing term sheets and partnership agreements, sometimes to unravel those is multi-month, multi-year. So that trust needs to be there. As awesome as a distribution channel somebody may be, if they don't act in the same ethical and value-based way that you want to make sure your team treats other people, it's going to end up being a very big challenge to manage. So starting with that's a great thing. And when you think about what that looks like, additionally, really, I think Sergio's comment is spot on. Really thinking through how you can present yourself to scare people off if it's not the right fit. And honestly, what I think Sergio's seen with our team, we really scare people off sometimes because we are very blatantly ourselves. We're nerds, we're educators, and we care about data. And if you want to play, we're in. And if you don't, that's cool. Good luck to you. Letting people know what you stand for from the beginning, it makes things simple really, really quickly. Go ahead, Sergio, please.
There's one other thing, and I've seen this time and time again, okay? You need to make sure that on your side, but also on their side, that there's really an internal champion. And that's the person, he or she is going to carry it. It's going to be move it forward. They're going to be committed to it, okay? Because you don't want to do it in such a way that you spend so much time that once this internal champion, for whatever reason, leaves, that's the end of the relationship. So it's about having that initial champion, but also growing tentacles or influence within the organization past the internal champion to be able to continue growing.
And sometimes a lot of people, when they're setting up partnerships, they're automatically focused on the CEO. You will be shocked by who actually makes the decisions in most of these organizations. And so Get to know as many people in different parts of the organization as possible. And that's just introductory calls. Hey, I'm working on this, would love your feedback. You don't have to make the sale, but make those relationships throughout the organizations. And you will find it's sometimes lower level people and mid-level people that will be that internal champion and fight for you and give you the insights, ask you the tough questions of what they know their managers will ask beforehand, give you guidance on how to answer the thing. I mean, they almost become part of your team. So take the time to do that. Sergio, another great question from Derek. What's the role of digital marketing in channelizing an effective sales pipeline?
Great question. So digital marketing, in terms of your entire sales pipeline, you need to look at it in a number of different ways, right? And think of it as the short term, the medium term, and the long term, okay? So from the long-term perspective, you want to make sure that that's where your blogs and your SEO are really playing an important part. So people are finding you throughout different ways, through the searches or what have you, okay? On the short term, you want to be able to prospect. Once you know the 2 or 3 different primary prospects that you're going after, okay, you could do straight targeted campaigns, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Facebook, or what have you, or even for some of this, depending on who they are, you could do it very, very efficiently through something called programmatic ad buying, which buys thousands upon thousands at a lower CPM, at a lower cost per thousand. And the other thing is that now there's also a way for you to do what's called advertorials, if you will. So it's an article, but with a salesy message to it, right? So it's about lining up the different aspects of it and finding ways to be able to track them and monitor them to see which one works better than others. Not all of them are going to work the best, but you should be able to get some learnings and some insights from that, and obviously to track it in the CRM system.
We actually have tons of digital marketing materials on the EWC platform that might be a good idea to start, and we'll be doing a few more sessions around that in the coming couple of weeks. So stay on the lookout for that. Let's do one more question, then we'll turn it over to a larger Q&A around EWC because there are so many questions coming in about that. So when contacting, Shri asked, when contacting investors, do presenting our ideas, pros and cons, help them understand the situation better? And I'll start with this, and then I'd love Sergio to add to it. It's funny because a lot of people, when they're presenting to investors, they go directly into a place of, we're the only one doing it, guaranteed, all kinds of craziness. The kind of investors you want already are thinking through every possible obstacle, challenge, everything you're going to face. And they're trying to figure out what they can do to add value to de-risk it, or all of the problems of why it won't happen. I mean, all of us know 95% of startups fail. So the kind of investor you wants you to be very accountable and transparent on here's everything that can go wrong, and here's what we're doing to handle it as best we can. And I'll tell you, we've worked with several entrepreneurs, including one I know who's on this call right now, who have raised a lot of money, had challenges, company closed down, didn't work for whatever reason. And when they start their next company, all of the investors from their last one came right back in. Why? Because the entrepreneur was very clear and transparent. Here's every challenge. Here's how I'm dealing with it. Oh, this happened. Here's what we're doing to mitigate it. Crap, the economy's changing. This is changing. Here's what we're doing. That transparent and proactive approach means people can trust you. And in fact, one of the best fundraisers I've ever known, he sold a company for $300 million, came into one of our programs and raised tens of millions of dollars more with his new business, which is doing really well. The way he would talk to investors, I mean, it was almost like he was warning them the whole time how risky the investment was. it was hysterical to listen to, because the whole time he's pitching to investors, he's saying stuff like, you know, you could lose all of your money and it's very unlikely this will work, but here's what we're doing and here are our numbers so far and it's working so far, but we're ready to go to the next level. And if you want to invest, great, but here's all the risk factors. That creates trust. So your disclosing may scare off people who aren't ready to lose their money. Angel investors need to be ready to lose their money. So the ones who have a better risk tolerance, who are going to want to trust you and create a relationship, are the ones who are going to be really happy that you're having that level of disclosure. And I would have that be a recurring theme whenever you talk to your investors and your board members. Here's what came up this month that's a challenge for us. Here's what we're proactively doing to overcome it. Sergio, do you have anything to add before we get to kind of EWC Q&A?
I think that was a great answer, Susan. The only thing I would add is that as long as it comes from a realistic forecast in a realistic place and you do it in a humble way, that's the best thing that you can do.
Definitely. Humility, I mean, that should just be, that's the theme of every session we'll ever do for you guys. You know, coming at everything with taking your rose-colored glasses as entrepreneurs off and just being honest and clear with humility is always going to help in the end. So we have a lot of questions coming. First of all, thank you, Sergio. That was a really wonderful session, answered a lot of key burning questions, and we'll look forward to having you again really soon. And Sergio will be serving as a mentor in EWC coming up. So some of you will have the pleasure of getting lots of one-on-one time with him in the next few months. So thank you again, Sergio.
My pleasure.
So Matthew had a great idea. Matthew, can you put up a slide helping answer some of the burning questions here?
Sure, I definitely can.
Please. And there's a couple of questions here that I'm going to address directly. So somebody asked, can an idea stage service sector business idea win? Of course. I think that's the coolest thing about what we built here with EWC, because we had companies make it to the top 10 and including top 5 that were pretty early and were doing things that weren't the most profitable businesses, not scaling the fastest compared to some of the other ideas in the competition, but they did an amazing job explaining the opportunity, explaining why their teams were the ones who were going to execute. So the idea is not what's really being judged here. It's the execution, the scalability, and really the bigger picture opportunity. And if you guys are going to be the ones to pull it off. So keep that in mind. And we have great resources on the platform, how to build a great pitch. And over the course of the next few months, in addition to these workshops, the mentoring and one-on-one, as well as the cohort sessions we'll be having for global finalists, it's all about helping you get through everything, every single step. So we have another question here. What role does Slack play in EWC 2020? It's a way that helps us kind of get communications out easily. So there will be ongoing communications going out through Slack for workshops like this, etc. One of the things we did recently was let everyone know what the first group of global pool countries are. So checking stuff like that, you'll also get emails, but Slack is just a really efficient way to get the word out on a regular basis. So Matthew, do you want to walk us through some information to help people understand what they should be looking for?
Sure, definitely. So, hi everyone, my name is Matthew. I will be walking you through what I believe is the best way to ensure that whatever challenges or questions you have regarding your application or your EWC journey gets answered in a timely fashion, and you also get a response that is tailored to your specific use case, meaning your company's application. So the first thing that you need to do is ensure that you are logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to my platform.ewc.com account. So now I am on my dashboard. Now on my dashboard, I can see view application. I can see also where it says to see unlock perks. If I scroll down a little bit, there are announcements here. Now, before I go any further, what I want to point everybody's attention to is the intercom icon in the bottom right corner. So I'm going to go over there and I'm going to click. It says hi, and it gives my name. This is my fake user account, Timmy. My name is actually Matthew. Now, let's say that you have a question about your perks. Naturally, if you click on that icon, you're going to want to interact with the chatbot by clicking new conversation. But before you do that, what you can see is if there are articles already there that may have your answer already preloaded for you. So I have a question about perks. I'm going to type in perks. What are the perk and services benefits of applying to the EWC? So I'm going to click that one. Now, let's say the answer I got did not serve me. That was not the response I was looking for. My question was not answered. That's fine. I'm going to go back. What I'm going to go to now is click on new conversation. Now, in my new conversation, I'm going to say, hi, I don't understand how to unlock my perk. Now, by sending that message, what happens? A customer service agent on the other end sees your question, but it's assigned directly to your company. So unlike asking the question now in our Zoom call, what we are able to do is see your application, see all the background information that's specific and unique to you so that we're able to better troubleshoot why you may not be able to get the answer that you're looking for. So whether that question be about Slack, perks, emails, you name it, we're able to give you a more specific and unique and accurate answer that's tailored toward whatever challenge you're facing. Now, one of the questions I also saw in the chat was, how do I know if my application was submitted successfully? Well, here's what you do. I'm going to close out of Intercom.
And Matthew, if I may, one of the things that I think we should mention right now is Matthew is a product owner for our team. He's not the QA person on the platform. So he's walking you through this to be kind so you can figure out how to find stuff. But we're showing you where to ask these questions. We're not giving his email for you to ask questions about the platform. Cool?
Thank you. All right, guys. So if you are working on your application, whether you've started it, you're new to it, or you think you've submitted it, what you want to do is click on View Application. So I click View Application. And we're loading. Here we go. Now, here it has all the information I put in. Obviously, this is not a real account. I hope your application was filled in better than mine. I obviously need to visit the EWC Accelerate platform a little bit more so I can learn more and do a better job here. But fun and jokes aside, what you want to look for is the right-hand top corner where it says delete application. If you are not seeing that, it means that you did not submit your application. Okay, if when you click on view my application, it doesn't take you to an application summary with delete application in the right corner, it was not submitted yet. It means you still have more steps to go. Now, just to reiterate, um, if you are finding that you're having a recurring problem with accessing perks, or you just don't understand where to find what, your best friend will be this portal right here. First, start off by checking the articles out. If the articles do not help you, start a new conversation and just explain whatever your challenge is to the best of your ability, and someone will be able to help you.
Anything else there?
That should be it. Here are all the
Perfect.
cool perks I unlocked.
And timeline wise, I know there's been a couple of questions on timeline as well. So the way that the next few weeks look is we are notifying all of the current list of global pool countries. There were 52 countries that will be notified. We've posted the list within this chat. We're posting it on the Slack channel, and you'll be getting emails to notify you. Those countries in global pool need to finalize additional documents because they have to complete the Accelerate 1 deliverables. There will be another set of global pool countries notified in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, you are part of a country that has a national competition. So the larger countries tend to have national competitions. India, Nigeria, Pakistan, South Africa, there are already 70 national competition organizers. So you will be going through a normal national competition, meaning there may be regional competitions. There might just be one national one, but the point is a national organizer will be reaching out to you and organizing any additional materials you need to provide, etc., through the EWC platform. Otherwise, you'll be getting an email detailing, if you are in idea, early, or growth, exactly what you need to do, because our team is going to be handling the global pool. So I'll be posting that on Slack any second now. In addition, it's in the list. So that will be a really, really kind of key next step for you to see what needs to be done. By the middle of June, if you're in this first global pool group, you'll be invited for, you'll know whether or not you made it into the global finalist group. We will be selecting between 300 and 400 global finalists from all over the world. You'll be going through Accelerate 2, which is a virtual accelerator with mentoring, support, weekly cohort calls, and then we narrow it down to a top 100. Are there any other pressing questions, Carlos, that you see in the chat that we should address before we, I know we're already over, guys. I try so hard to have all of these things move on time.
As it appears, I think in terms of the high level questions, we're okay. They were covered.
Awesome.
Yep. And now these are like general business questions that our guests have.
Well, our next session is on next Tuesday, and then we'll have another Saturday session coming up. So just keep checking this thread. If there's anything you need in the meantime, we're here for you. And exactly what Matthew is suggesting, making sure you know how to utilize the platform to get the answers you need. Please, please, please use the platform. That's what it's there for. We have an incredible team working on not only finding solutions to your questions there, but more importantly, if there are bugs or challenges, letting sure they know so they can fix them, because it's over 100,000 people now on the platform applying. And we really want to make sure if you're having a problem, other people may have too. We want to get it fixed. So with that, guys, great session. Really, really happy to see so many people from all over the world engaging. And we will see you same time, same place next Tuesday. We'll be posting it on our Slack channel, and just keep checking back. And as a last thought, Matthew showed you how to get to Accelerate 1. All the resources are sitting there for you. The deliverables are listed there if you are in a global pool competition. Please utilize. We made all of these materials and resources, not just to help you get your applications done, but to help you build great businesses and serve your customers and your countries better in real life. So get back to work, keep smiling, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks very much. Bye.